Is that okay? Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Julie Chavez Rodriguez, and I have the distinct pleasure of working with many of you here in the room and around the country to engage and employ young people on our public lands. As the director of Secretary Salazar's Youth Initiative, I can't think of a better place to be in my career, and I can't think of a better leader for this department than Secretary Ken Salazar. My parents and my grandparents taught me that America has always been a work in progress, an idea that generation after generation has worked to perfect. But just think for a minute about how far we have come as a nation. The fact that a child can grow up on a ranch in Colorado's San Luis Valley with no electricity, graduate from law school in order to fight to get his house on the grid, and eventually become Secretary of the Interior is a true testament to our journey and progress as a country. Secretary Salazar's story is our story. For these reasons, we choose to work for Secretary Salazar and to serve this great Department of the Interior, united in a common mission to continue the march of progress in America that started hundreds of years before any of us. In my short 2 years with the department, I've come to admire Secretary Salazar, and I'd like to share with you all briefly why. Secretary Salazar is results-driven. I'm sure every time that Secretary Salazar sees you or leaders from your bureau or office, he inquires about the progress and updates your team has made in reaching its goals. In my case, I often hear, "Wow, Julie, it's great to see you, but how many youth have we employed this year?" Secretary Salazar genuinely cares about each and every one of the 70,000 employees here at the Department of the Interior. He makes it a point to host employee meetings and town halls wherever he is traveling throughout the country so that he can personally meet as many of you all as possible. He leads by example and works harder than anyone I have ever met, regularly putting in 12 to 16-hour days to get the job done. His passion for empowering Native communities, standing up renewable energy projects, and engaging youth is absolutely infectious. As a result, he has put the Department of the Interior on the map so that I no longer get questions like, "The Department of what?" He makes sure that the President knows all of the great work that each of you all are doing every day and advocates for DOI at the highest levels of government. And finally, he is one of the most selfless people I have ever met. His dedication is not based on gaining personal praise or recognition, but is rooted in the future of our department and the betterment of our country. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my distinct honor to present to you the 50th Secretary of the U.S. Department of the Interior, Secretary Ken Salazar.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Julie. So I'm going to take this occasion and ask some of you to fill in to the front. So Art, Gary, since you're with me till about midnight, everybody come on up. This is like a church gathering, and everybody wants to be in the back. I want you up here in the front. I want those whole last 10 rows to move up here so I can see you, because you're too far away. You're too far away. No, I want you in the front row. I want the Solicitor Hillary Tompkins, I want you up here. We need our lawyers close to us in Interior. Andrew, that's too far back. I want you to sit there behind Steve Black. And then the folks who are out in the hallway, I want you to come in too. See, it's great to be Secretary of Interior and to have some authority. Let me say, just to recognize a few people. David Hayes, Deputy Secretary of Interior, please stand. Give him a round of applause. He's done a lot the last few years. and your soon-to-be Chief of Staff, Laura Davis. Stand, Laura. And Matt Lee Ashley, new Deputy Chief of Staff. Give him a round of applause. And so many wonderful people, all of you who are here. I'd spend all day actually reflecting on not only our political appointees, but also our career people, people like Frank Quimby, who I see in the back there, who, when you look at Frank Quimby, you ask Frank Quimby, how long have you been with the department? And it's more than 2 and 3 decades. And you ask, you know, he looks like he's about 50, but he is a little older than that. But he does a great job. Frank Quimby, please stand, and let's give you a round of applause. And Tom Strickland, our Assistant Secretary for Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and who has served as Chief of Staff, has done a great job for this department. He is actually in California meeting with our Fish and Wildlife employees there today, and we will be back to appropriately celebrate him and his great contributions to the department. I want to say thank you all for coming here today, and I want to thank all of you who are joining us by satellite, those of you who are watching us on the web, and those of you who are on the phone this afternoon. Julie, I want to thank you for your introduction. I think you overstated me, but I don't want to understate you, because you truly are a superstar. And when you think about what a superstar is made of, it's really about results. Because when we started working on our youth initiative a couple years ago, some people said it's a crazy idea and maybe it can be done. But let me just say, her efforts have helped to make the employment and education of our youth a top priority. And I'm pleased to announce that in the fiscal year 2010, which just ended, the Department of the Interior employed 21,000, and let's be exact, 21,874 youth. That's an increase of 45% over the previous year. I was at the White House with most of the cabinet and the president just a few days ago, where the president spoke about our efforts as an administration to strengthen military families and their lives when they come back home from war, or even when they're at war, how we are working with their families. And the Department of Interior was singled out by the president for great praise. The great praise for the National Park Service and our agencies who are so involved in helping with the rehabilitation of our wounded warriors when they come back here to the United States. He also made it a point to speak about how we in this department have taken a leadership role in providing work opportunities and job opportunities for the young men and women who are coming back to this country after having served our country. And so when we think about 21,784 younger people who are working with us here in this department, it truly is something which is being noticed. It's something which we are leading the government on, and I'm proud to be the Secretary of Interior working with Julie and making that happen. So let's give Julie another round of applause for a great work. You know, last night, President Obama delivered his State of the Union address. For those of you who watched it, you probably noticed that I wasn't there. And it's not because I have any plans on leaving, because I don't. I guarantee you that I have every intention to be your secretary for the Obama administration. But I was off with Laura Davis at an undisclosed location. And though it was a late night, it was great to watch the president in his speech and to have had a hand in helping craft a part of that speech. The president's speech provided a roadmap about what America needs to do to win the future. He spoke about the need to create jobs today, what we need to do to be competitive tomorrow, and what we must do to win the future for our children and for our country. As I listened to the president with Laura at that undisclosed location, I thought about all the things that we at the Department of the Interior are doing really to implement that agenda and to help our nation harness its potential. I thought about how our renewable energy agenda is creating jobs and driving innovation, very much a keystone to the clean energy agenda. We are indeed, in my view, a driving force behind the nation's clean energy agenda and making believers out of those skeptics who said that it can't be done. We believe in this department that it can be done, and we will get it done. I thought about the remarkable progress that the department has made toward ensuring that oil and gas is developed safely and responsibly, not only on our lands, but in our nation's oceans, so that we can meet the nation's energy needs. I thought as I listened to the speech about all we are doing as a group of employees of the people of the United States to protect the lands and the wildlife and the history and the culture that define us as a people and that fuels our spirit as Americans. I thought about our nation's first Americans and what we are doing to empower tribes to pursue a future of their choosing so that they, too, can achieve their full God-given potential. And I thought about our scientists and our engineers in each of our agencies, our water experts and all the people in our department whose daily work helps our economy grow, businesses flourish, and our nation prosper. The truth is, the strength of our economy, the strength of our spirit, the strength of our union are all tied to what we do here at the Department of the Interior. That's why I'm proud to serve as your secretary. I'm proud to serve in the President's administration. It also is why many of you who are here, you who are watching from Alaska to the Everglades to Acadia, it's why you chose to serve the public from your proud positions in this department. Now, this past year at the Department of the Interior has not been an easy year. In a word, it's been a full year full of challenges and full of complex undertakings, but we have survived and we're doing very well. We started out the year with great ambitions to stand up renewable energy on our public lands and oceans and to build a conservation ethic for the 21st century. We move forward with an ambition to strengthen the relationship with Indian country and to infuse science into the decision-making process. And while we kept a laser focus on these goals and have a great record of achievement to show for our collective work, we also responded with a Herculean effort to the tragedy of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill that killed 11 men and spilled millions of barrels of oil into the Gulf of Mexico. From the beginning, this department served in a leadership role and an integral role in responding to the disaster. Biologists from the Fish and Wildlife Service established wildlife recovery centers to save our oil pelicans and to incubate sea turtle eggs until they could be safely returned to the wild. Scientists from Ann Castle's shop and Marcia McNutt's shop in the USGS developed the innovative technologies and methods to estimate the spill's flow rate, and they lent their scientific expertise and engineering expertise to the well control mission to kill the well. National park rangers under the leadership of Tom Strickland and John Jarvis and Dan Wenk and Dan Kimball and so many others donned their gloves and shovels to clean the oiled beaches at the Gulf Islands National Seashore. I walked those seashores often with them. The MMS, now the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, and their employees worked overtime, and I watched their work to help kill the well and to move forward to make offshore oil and gas development safer in the future. And employees from every corner and region of the department uprooted their lives, often leaving behind families to deploy to the Gulf to respond to the disaster. I'm reminded here of people like Lori Faith, who ended up spending almost 120 days nonstop down in the Gulf, or people like Ralph Morganwick, a longtime 3-decade-plus employee of the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who also spent his time in the Gulf making sure that we had the right presence there at Interior to protect the people and to protect the environment of the Gulf. Now, our work in the Gulf today is by no means over. There is much more to be done to restore the Gulf and to rebuild the region, and I am confident that with people like Cindy Donor from the Fish and Wildlife Service helping lead the charge, and with Hillary Tompkins' star team in the solicitor's office, that we will be successful, and that we not only will achieve a safer oil and gas production in the Gulf of Mexico, but we also will achieve real meaningful ecological restoration of the Gulf Coast, an ecological area which has frankly been degraded for more than a century by the hand of man. We have a unique opportunity to move forward and to do a restoration in the Gulf Coast that can become a template of ecological restoration all around the world. But right now it is appropriate and necessary to thank all of you who contributed in ways large and small to responding to the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. Your hard work and your dedication in the face of the largest oil spill in our nation's history is nothing short of heroic. And I thank you all on behalf of a grateful nation. I would ask all of us to give everybody who put their shoulder behind the effort to deal with the events that started on April the 20th of last year a round of applause for their great efforts on behalf of this country. Now, as I look back over the past year, I'm proud of the fact that in spite of the Deepwater Horizon and all the time and resources that the department devoted to it, the many times that Christopher Mansour and all of his team had to get me ready to go and testify, I believe 14 or 20 times in front of committees of the Congress and others, that notwithstanding all that we did there, that we were still able to accomplish the ambitious agenda that we originally set out to do. And in fact, we even did more than we had thought we could do. On the conservation front, we welcomed new national wildlife refuges into the family and proposed others. The new Flint Hills Legacy Conservation Area, which I dedicated in Kansas a few months ago, works with the ranchers of that area to protect more than 1 million acres of the last remaining tallgrass prairies of the United States of America. And we were able to get that done. In Colorado, the Rocky Mountain Arsenal National Wildlife Refuge, a 27 square mile area which will become one of the greatest urban wildlife refuges of our time, formally joined the Department of the Interior. A place that once served as a manufacturing site for weapons and toxic chemicals is now home to bald eagles and roaming buffalo and surrounded by about 3 million people who frankly will take advantage of this gateway to conservation which we collectively created here in this department. And earlier this month, I announced a proposal in Florida for a new wildlife refuge and conservation area in Florida at the headwaters to the Everglades. Like Flint Hills, this area would work with local ranchers to preserve their heritage and way of life for generations to come. The Everglades restoration effort, which this department has undertaken and which we have put on steroids over the last 2 years, really has become the template for ecosystem restoration around the world. So as the world watches, we are moving forward with a results-driven agenda that is restoring the river of grass and restoring the World Heritage Site that the Everglades exemplifies for the entire world. And I want to thank Sam Hamilton and his legacy at the Everglades, along with the leadership that Tom Strickland has shown as the chairperson of the Everglades Task Force, Don Jodfrey, and so many other people who have worked on that effort. Now, all these refuges mark a new era of conservation for the department. There's a lot more to come in the year ahead. But this new era of conservation is one that is community-driven. It is science-based. It takes into account entire ecosystems and working landscapes. In 2010, we also, through everyone in this department, many people involved in this department in our regions, in the states, and here in Washington, D.C., we carried the torch for President Obama's America's Great Outdoors Initiative, which he announced right here on April 16th of 2009. Along with our federal partners, the department held 51 public sessions across the country and heard from thousands and thousands of Americans, more than 100,000 of them. And we listened to them about how we can promote and support innovative community-level conservation efforts and how we can reconnect Americans, especially our young people, in the way that Julie and her team have done to the outdoors. Soon, we will be delivering a report to the President that lays out a vision of an enduring conservation agenda for the 21st century. At the end of last year, BLM Director Bob Abbey and I announced a new wildlands policy that restores balance and clarity to the management of our public lands. The much-needed policy will ensure that the lands of the American people, the lands of the American public, which belong to you and me and to every one of the 300 million Americans, the places where we hunt and fish and find solitude, are protected wisely for generations to come. And on the energy front, this department led and is helping lead President Obama's charge to build a clean energy economy. And in 2010, we started to show the world how we can unlock our nation's renewable energy potential in unprecedented ways. With the work of people like Bob Abbey and Wilma Lewis and Steve Black and Janaea Scott and Neil Kemkar and David Hayes and so many other people. We approved more than a dozen solar, wind, geothermal, and transmission projects, including 9 solar energy projects in the deserts of Nevada and California. Combined, these projects will produce nearly 3,700 megawatts of energy, or enough power to electrify over 100 million homes. And these projects will create over 7,300 jobs. These are the first ever large-scale solar energy projects ever approved on public lands, and they will include the largest solar energy project in the entire world. We approved the Cape Wind Energy Project, the nation's first offshore wind project, after the project had languished in red tape for a very long time. And we have launched an offshore wind initiative to spur smart strategic development in our nation's oceans, and are moving forward with the SWAT team to make sure that we do it smart from the start, with David Hayes and Michael Bromwich and others in a leadership position on this effort. I'm confident that we will see offshore energy becoming a reality along the Atlantic and other places around our coast in America. We also continued the most aggressive and comprehensive reforms to offshore oil and gas regulation in U.S. history. We are raising the bar for safety, oversight, and environmental protections at every stage of the development process. And we are establishing an offshore energy safety program and committee to institutionalize the lessons that we learned from the Deepwater Horizon and bridge the information and technology gap that exists between industry, academia, and government. Internally, we have taken a hard look from the very top to the very bottom at our own operations to see where we need to change the way that we do business. Under the leadership of Michael Bromwich and Chris Henderson and Ria Su, we have undertaken a massive overhaul of the agency that regulates offshore energy production. We are deconflicting the missions of the former MMS by establishing 3 independent agencies to carry out the 3 separate missions. Those missions are: 1, we promote resource development of our offshore energy resources. That's one mission. A second mission is to make sure that we are enforcing the safety regulations on those operations. And a third mission is to maximize the revenue, where we average $13 billion of revenue from the American people's assets to the American Treasury. So those are 3 missions which we have deconflicted with the reorganization that we have undertaken. This new framework will provide the right checks and balances as we evaluate proposed oil and gas projects in the future. The structure will ensure that robust environmental analysis and safety considerations are given appropriate weight throughout the permitting and drilling process. Now, I know this past year has been especially challenging for the employees of the former MMS, now the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management, Regulation, and Enforcement. And I want to thank those employees for their hard work, patience, and constructive solutions as we undergo this transition and work to make the United States the gold standard in offshore energy production. Just yesterday, Chris Henderson and David Hayes and I met with with Greg Gold and Debbie Schutte, who I believe are watching this presentation in Lakewood. And we went through a history of what we have done over the last 2 years to stand up the Office of Natural Resource Revenue there in Lakewood, Colorado. It is nothing short of phenomenal what those employees have accomplished. They feel good about the work that they're doing on behalf of the American taxpayer. And it's a much improved organization over what it was 2 years ago. And they recognize that they have much more work to do. But Greg and Debbie are not political appointees. They weren't people that I brought onto this team. They were people who have been working there and who know what they are doing. And so as we have reorganized that part of the Department of Interior, it's also important for us to always remember that the people who make this department really run are the career employees of the United States Department of the Interior. So give them a round of applause for what they have done once again. Now all of you know from the multiple visits that President Barack Obama has made to this stage to speak about the agenda of the United States with respect to First Americans, that we have been ushering in a new chapter in the relationship between the United States and the Indian tribes of this country. So as we've implemented that agenda in Indian country, this department made some great strides over the past year. You in this department know better than most what the Cobell litigation did to Interior. As a result of the great leadership of my senior team here in the department, working hand in glove, David Hayes and Hillary Tompkins with the Department of Justice, we were able to finally bring the Cobell settlement to a close. The Cobell settlement, which honorably and responsibly addresses the longstanding injustices regarding the U.S. government's trust mismanagement, closing that chapter will allow us to move forward with a respectful and positive and proactive relationship for the nation's First Americans. So thank you to all of you who worked so hard on that particular effort. Now, as difficult and as much time as the Cobell litigation took for us to resolve in the last year, it's only a small part of the work that we have done together to advance the agenda with respect to the nation's First Americans. As a result of work from many people in the Solicitor's Office and led by by Letty Balin, who has spent so much time working on these issues, and Mike Connor, who probably is the best person at getting these things done that has ever lived in the United States of America. Okay. The President of the United States signed into law 4 Indian water rights settlements that will total more than $1 billion, which is already set aside for these projects. And those projects will help deliver clean drinking water to Indian communities, and they will provide certainty to water users across the West. Let me make a point about what that means. First, when you look at some of the reservation areas where I have visited, where many of you have visited, there are places where 70 or 80% of the people who live in those reservations have never had potable running water. Where, as in the testimony regarding the Navajo water pipeline, there were pictures of the water trucks that would go out to the places where the Navajo people live and delivered water, which would be taken in 5-gallon cans into the homes to be able to provide domestic water supply. Tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of Native Americans will, for the first time, have what most of us take for granted, and that is good, clean, potable water in their homes. That is a great justice whose time has come, to recognize those water rights and to be able to make these water projects a reality. That's what those 4 Indian water projects were all about, a moral imperative fulfilled. So give that team a round of applause for having done that. Now, when we talk about Indian water rights, there's also the other side of the equation, as Ann Castle and others would quickly point out, and that is that what happens with Indian water rights is also you create a cloud over the other water users who have also grown to have economic certainty and dependence on the exercise of and use of water from those rivers. And so by resolving these Indian water rights claims, what we also did is for non-Indian water users, provide certainty with respect to their future water supply. So it was a great achievement in that arena. I'm also proud of the work that so many of you did with Assistant Secretary Larry Echohawk and his entire team to put together the second White House Tribal Nations Conference, and together renewed our pledge to carry out our agenda of reconciliation and empowerment for Indian nations. Let me make a comment here as well on our group of people working within the Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs. For a long time, before 2008, there were parts of that branch of the department which simply could not do its job because we did not have people in those positions. We would go and did go for a period of time for 3 or 4 years where we did not have an Assistant Secretary for Indian Affairs. One of the great achievements, really, that we have done in the last several years is that all of the positions are filled. We have no vacancies in the National Indian Gaming Commission. We have an Assistant Secretary of Indian Affairs, Larry Echohawk, who has already served longer than anybody served in his position in the previous 50 years, I am told. We have a Bureau of Indian Education Affairs Director and a Bureau of Indian Affairs Director, so we have a great team. And we're fortunate to have someone who has joined that team by the name of Jody Gillette, who has been working in the White House and who knows First American issues backwards and forwards. So our work on First Americans is work that I'm very proud of that we've done, but our work there has only just begun. So thank you to all of you who work on that agenda. We also continued the drumbeat to restore science to its rightful place in our decision-making process. We are putting science to work for us with the planned establishment of 8 climate science centers around the nation. In coordination with our landscape conservation cooperatives, which Sam Hamilton envisioned, we are laying a strong foundation for a coordinated strategy to address the impacts of climate change on our land, water, wildlife, and resources. Just a note on the issue of climate change and water. For those of you who participated with Ann Castle and her team, as we dealt with the set of Colorado River issues and the great dearth of water that we currently had and have in the Colorado River Basin and the decline in the levels in Lake Mead and putting together the agreement with Mexico on a shared water arrangement in the Colorado River. For those of you who have worked in the water arena, when you think about a 20% decline of water availability within the Colorado River Basin, which affects the 7 states of the Colorado River Basin, that is a huge problem for the United States. But that's what our scientists are telling us we are looking at on the Colorado River Basin. So it doesn't matter whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, whether you're a farmer that irrigates from the Colorado River, whether you're an Indian water rights holder or a municipal water rights user from the Colorado River, you need to wake up, as the water users in the Colorado River have, to the reality that climate change is something that we need to respond to, and we need to get ready for those changes. And we are leading the way there through our efforts here in this department. We're also leading the charge to foster a culture of scientific and scholarly integrity, recognizing that science and scholarship play a vital role in the department's mission. We are the first agency in the administration to develop a policy on scientific integrity. This policy, which we will be releasing in a departmental manual in the coming days, establishes ethical standards, including a code of conduct that will apply to all Interior employees, political appointees, and career alike, so that good science is never choked out for the sake of expediency or for politics. Today, we should also reflect on our accomplishments as an Interior team in 2010. But we must also look forward. That's why I'm proud to announce today the release of the department's 5-year strategic plan, which Assistant Secretary Reyes Su led to completion. By the way, give her a round of applause, because in her absence, I think she might have a baby today or tomorrow or the next day. We wish her the very best. I see Chris Henderson checking his emails, so see what's going on. This comprehensive plan includes 5 specific priority goals that will help focus our efforts, and they are the following. By the end of 2012, the department will increase approved capacity for production of renewable energy resources on public lands while ensuring full environmental review to at least 10,000 megawatts. Is that true, Steve? 10,000 megawatts? So that's a big goal. By the end of 2012, for 50% of the nation, the department will identify resources that are particularly vulnerable to climate change and implement a coordinated adaptation response action plan for those changes. By the end of 2012, this department will increase available water supply for agriculture, municipal, industrial, and environmental uses in the western United States by 490,000 acre feet through reclamation's conservation-related programs. Now, some of you would think 490,000 acre feet, that's a lot. Imagine 490,000 acres of land, each with 1 foot of water in depth. That's what you're talking about saving through the conservation initiatives of Mike Connor and the Bureau of Reclamation and that team. In addition, by the end of 2012, Julie has her work cut out with her, but this is truly a complete departmental undertaking. But we will increase the employment of youth between the ages of 15 and 25 in the conservation mission of this department by more than 50%. And within 24 months, the department will achieve a significant reduction in crime of at least 5% on targeted tribal reservations, where we have led the way in an interagency effort to combat drugs and violence in reservations around the country. Now, it's an ambitious plan, one with challenging performance targets, and I hope that you will take some time to review the plan to better understand the mission, the priorities, and the vision for the future. Now, as I look to the future, I look at each of you who is here today and think of you who are watching us from faraway places. And you give me reason to be optimistic about our future. Building off the achievements of the past 2 years, we know we have the potential to do amazing things. If we can do amazing things in the face of crisis, imagine what we can do when we're planning and thinking ahead in the way that we're doing. So we'll continue to usher in a new era of conservation in implementing the President's America's Great Outdoors initiative, in creating great urban parks for the people of the United States, protecting rural and working landscapes all across our country, and enhancing and restoring the blueways and rivers of America. We will continue to build a safe, secure energy future by rapidly and responsibly standing up renewable energy on our public lands. Now, this will take planning that's smart from the start, with thoughtful siting and development and strong local, federal, and tribal partnerships. But with American workers and American ingenuity, these projects will make believers out of skeptics. We will continue to raise the bar on offshore energy production so that safety and science permeate every decision, and so the United States serves as a gold standard in sustainable, profitable oil and gas development. We will continue to work with Native Americans to build stronger economies and safer communities. We will implement a tribal consultation policy that will provide a framework for an open and transparent nation-to-nation dialogue. And we will continue to tackle the most pressing challenges of our day, from climate change to water shortages to endangered species, armed with the best science available for us so that we can make the best decisions. At Interior, we often talk about the importance of passing on a better world for our children and grandchildren. We get it here because we understand the connection to our planet and our Earth. I often find myself thinking about the world in which our children and grandchildren will grow up in, the life that they will lead, and how our decisions here at this department will affect their tomorrow. I wonder if they will get to see the massive glaciers of Glacier National Park, or feel the warm sand of the Florida Keys under their feet, or see the great swoop of the bald eagle or the whooping crane. Now, I know that I can't guarantee this for the next generation, nor can you. But I know that the President and I and all of you here won't fight with every ounce of energy you have to fulfill that dream. And I know from the work that you do on a daily basis that you share my determination and the President's determination to win the future for our children and for our grandchildren, for our planet. So together, I believe we can and we will win that future. So I thank you all, and I thank you for your great service to the United States. God bless America. God bless the Department of Interior. Thank you. Thank you very much. I am told I have a few minutes for some questions. So does anybody have any questions? There's a microphone out there. A couple microphones. Raise your hand. So let's speak them. Okay. So I don't see any hands. So I'm going to call on somebody. Bob Abbey? Marcelin Burke sitting next to Bob Abbey. Marcelin, I want you to give me a comment or a question. You can take a microphone right back here, right here on the left. Marcelin was a professor at the University of Houston. I heard her a tenured professor there.
I am.
And I heard her say in a meeting that we had about 2 months ago that the best decision she had ever made was to come and work here at the Department of the Interior. So, Marcelin Burke, what do you have to say?
What do I have to say? Well, Mr. Secretary, I've had the pleasure in the last 2 days of briefing some congressional staffers on our new wild lands policy. And those have been
Are you still alive?
So in the last 2 days, I've talked to about 40 congressional staffers. And most thought those would be difficult occasions. But they were not difficult because I have great confidence that we made a great decision, and this is something that the field needed. This is something that the country needed. So I just wanted to let you know that we are standing tall, proud, and strong.
Thank you, Marcelin. That's good to know because I have meetings with 3 of those U.S. senators coming up here in a few minutes. So maybe they'll treat you different. Maybe you should come with me. Yes, right over here, Lucinda Pena.
Mr. Secretary, I would like to talk with you or hear more about how the Department of Interior is going to be connecting with all Americans with their national parks, their public lands, and really engaging all Americans and our non-traditional users.
It's a good question, and you've often heard me describe what the department does, in my view, in the words of one of my American heroes, and that's Senator Danny Inouye from Hawaii. Senator Inouye always says when he talks about this department that it's the best department in the United States government. But he also says that it's the best department because we are the custodians of America's natural resources and heritage, but also we are the custodians of America's history and the history of its people. And in that vein, we do a lot in this department. We tell the story of immigration through the great work that is underway right now in Liberty Island and Ellis Island in New York. We tell the great work of civil rights, what we will do with the 150th celebration this year of the Civil War and the struggle for civil rights in this country. We'll do it with the Japanese internment camps so that we continue to tell that story. But I think it's important, as I have done even in the last several weeks with Director Jarvis and others, to make sure that we're telling the entire story of America so that no one is left behind. And there are parts of the American story that have not been told as well as they should have been. One example is the example of Cesar Chavez and his great work in the fields in the Southwest and in California to bring justice to those who pick the crops from the fields of our country that we end up eating on our kitchen tables. And so there will be events like that that we will undertake this year. In addition to that, the celebration of the Flight 93 Memorial, which we hope to be able to get to a point of having completed a project. That's another project that had long stalled until Neil Mulholland and Dan Wenk and a number of other people were involved in helping us work through some very tough issues over the last several years. So we'll be in a position where we will cut the ribbon there for the heroes of Flight 93. And that's a part of telling America's story. You know, for me, last night as I was at the undisclosed location, I thought about how fortunate we are as a country to have the freedom that we are able to exercise here in this country. But I also thought as well about the threats that often face this country, and I thought about that plane that went down in the fields near Shanksville, Pennsylvania, where the passengers of Flight 93 probably kept that plane from flying right into the center of our government at the United States Capitol. And how we continue to tell that story so that people do not forget it. That's an important function that the Department of Interior plays, and we'll continue to find ways of improving and celebrating the story that makes us the America that we are. Yes, Marcia.
Yes, Mr. Secretary. I was intrigued by the President's approach last night in his State of the Union address to his continuing promotion of alternative energy. And knowing the tenor of the new Republican-controlled House, instead of trying to sell it based on climate change, he instead was promoting it based on technologies and economic competitiveness and a better stance for the U.S. economy, which I think are all good reasons to do it. And it occurred to me that perhaps in standing up the new safety committee that you're putting together, another one way to look at the safety committee very broadly is also to look at safety in various energy technologies, because I think a good case can be made that solar panels rarely kill people or cause massive environmental mayhem, and that basically the safety committee could be looking very broadly, not just at the offshore industry, but at alternative energies altogether, and looking at the relative safety cases for energy, wind energy, solar energy, as well as the offshore energy.
Marcia, I think that safety and environmental protection has to be part of our culture and whatever it is that we do in this department. And so certainly as we look at renewable energy and we adopt the Bob Abbey doctrine of smart from the start, part of what we need to make sure is that we are looking at those safety and those environmental issues. Indeed, what we are working on right now with respect to the hydraulic fracturing issue is part of that agenda. But let me take your question and step back just a minute. I mean, what the President said last night is that we want to essentially take a moonshot to energy independence. He called it the Sputnik moment of the United States relative to innovation. And with respect to energy, it's a very ambitious goal. When you think about 80% of the energy that we use here in the United States coming from clean energy sources by the year 2035, that gives us less than 25 years to get there. But it's also important to think about that clean energy portfolio as one which is multifaceted, and it will displease both Republicans and it will displease some Democrats. It will displease conservatives and it will displease liberals, because it is a broad energy portfolio. It includes embracing, yes, wind and geothermal and solar energy, which we work on so hard here in this department, but it also includes another part of what we do here in this department, and that is natural gas and the future for natural gas. And it also includes moving forward with the next chapter with respect to nuclear energy for the United States. So you look at that broad energy portfolio, and that's why we have confidence that we can lay out that bold vision to get us there. And at the end of the day, the policy underpinnings for the President's priority on energy has been clear to me from day one, and even before he became president, from him. And that is that we need to get to a new world of energy, because winning the future really is going to be largely dependent on who wins the race on the energy future, and how we harness the varied parts of energy that we have in our energy portfolio to get us there. And if we can win that future, which we believe we will win that future, it means, first of all, that we've addressed the issue of national security, so that we are not dependent on the dependency that has grown in the last 40 years for the importation of oil from faraway sources, where there is essentially much of the money that fuels the anti-American sentiments. Secondly, that we address the creation of jobs here in the United States, which is good, obviously, for our economy, which is our #1 agenda right now. And number three, that we're able to address also the warming of our planet. So when we talk about winning the future, it's all in that innovation and energy agenda. Let me thank all of you for being so wonderful, for being here today, and for listening to my comments. I have another meeting that I have to run to in about 5 minutes, but I wanted to say once again, thank you to the 70,000 employees of the Department of Interior who work every day on behalf of the people of the United States. Thank you.